won't be before you long. This story is something that came to me maybe a year ago, actually. The story of this person. And in this story, there's so much that comes from here. Can't even really sum it up into one. But have you ever felt like you were trying to get your life together and something just kept coming and knocking you down? You ever felt like 10 steps ahead and then 10 steps back? Yeah. So in this story, we're going to talk about a mighty man of valor. His name was Gideon. And Gideon was answering God's call. He was an ordinary man, he was insecure, and he was actually brought up to glory in one of the worst times in Israel's history. So, just so we know, that God doesn't wait for perfect conditions. He calls us while we're hiding, hurting, and unsure. So in Israel, right now, this time in Israel, this comes from Judges, by the way, the book of Judges. Israel was being oppressed by the Midianites for 7 years. There were also other wars that were going on at this time in the land. But every time that Israel planted crops, the Midianites came and destroyed them. They came to steal them and strip them away of everything that they were building. Right, so they brought these huge armies that they compared to swarms of locusts. Leaving Israel was nothing. So imagine, for the children in here, the college students, you're working all semester, you get this A ready, and then all of a sudden, what happens? Your computer breaks. What are you going to do now? Right, so this is how the Israelite people felt while these Midianites were coming and stealing everything that they got from them. So, because of how they felt, they hid in caves and mountains in fear. These people felt powerless and discouraged and forgotten. And that was the Midianites' goal, was to keep them doubtful and scared, and they felt like they had no control. Their identity was damaged, and they questioned God's presence and promise. So the Midianites are kind of how I see Satan and his army. How they like to cast doubt, and they like to play on each other with your pain and the pressures of life and the struggles that you deal with, and they keep you in this draining cycle, and it feels like it never ends. The stress and the trauma and the insecurity, financial pressure, family problems, self-doubt, anything that keeps showing up to steal your joy, to keep crippling that joy. Gideon was an unlikely servant. Gideon was hiding. He was trying to thresh wheat in a winepress, which is usually done out in the open. But he was hiding this time because the Midianites kept coming. So he's like, I gotta keep this for myself, right? We gotta do what we gotta do. Where are our resources? So he was afraid. But God called on him. An angel came before him and called him a mighty man of valor. He's like, what do you mean, a mighty man of valor? You know, Gideon responds with fear and doubt, and he's saying, why is this happening? Well, where's God? I'm the least of my family. Gideon responds like many of us do. God, you got the wrong person. But God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
All right. All right.
He said, I will be with you. So Gideon started an army. 32,000 men. God reduced it. He said, I want you to test your men. He split them in half. He said, go to the lake. Half of you pick the men who aren't drinking savagely, the ones that are drinking like men, right? They're going out to the lake and they're drinking with grace and they're drinking with honor. The other men were lapping it up like dogs, just drinking your drink. So he says, choose your men. He breaks down his 32,000 army down to 300 men. Why? Why are you going to take 32,000 people away? We're going to be facing, we're in war. I need my men, but we got 300 people now, so what are we going to do? It was because God wanted them to know that their victory is not going to come from man. It's going to come from God. He's going to give you the strength. Like the song says, what a friend we have in Jesus, right? He's always with us. Sometimes we don't even have 3 friends to call in a time of crisis. But God will give us the strength. He'll give you the arsenal to fight. It's easy to listen to doubt, and it's easy to listen to fear, right? So Gideon, he overcomes this fear one step at a time. He asks for signs. He struggles. He's hesitant. But I'll tell you, in times when we're asking God, please show me, how do I get out of this mess? What can I do? And we're asking him and waiting, and at times waiting, and he tells you something. Sometimes disobedience or procrastination is disobedience in slow motion. Yes. We need to take heed and listen to what God tells us when he tells us to do it, because there are times, some things are time sensitive, right? Yeah. So he still obeyed even while he was afraid. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's trusting God while he is still present, while fear is still present in us. So we have to do things even when we don't feel like we can. Even when we feel doubt and we feel fear and we feel like I can't do this by myself. You're not by yourself. You got a 300-man army behind you of angels, and God is always with you. So your Midianites don't disqualify you. You don't need to be perfect, and your past doesn't reflect who you are today. Your past is not perfect, and God often calls the insecure, the overlooked, the underestimated. God sees you differently than you see yourself. Gideon saw himself as the weakest. He saw himself, God saw him as a warrior. God speaks to who you are becoming, not where you've been and who you've been. So all the warriors in here, pick up your sword.